am Lamel, a volunteer here, and today we are going to have a pleasure to attend José Mussi's presentation that is entitled, Dismistifying Mediumship. And I'm absolutely sure it's going to be a brilliant presentation. I'm glad that you're here. And Mr. José Mussi is the president of the Toronto Spiritist Society. We are very, very happy to have you here. And I can't wait to see your presentation. So let's put our heads together for the
Well, thank you. As you probably know, this lecture is going to be in English. For those who are not understanding me, I can't help you much, but hopefully we all know that we'll be here for this in this room all day long with our English track of presentations. So as Mila said, I'm the president of the Toronto Spiritist Society. Titles apart, it's not really important. I'm a fairly recent Spiritist. I've been involved with Spiritism for only about 4 years, which is just like kindergarten in terms of the studies. I'm curious of history and science. So when I was invited to do a presentation here about mediumship, I started to think what would be some neat ideas. So well, why don't we start from the reason that we're celebrating this year, the Medium's book, 150 years. Kardec was quite a avant-garde kind of person where he introduced all kinds of new ideas about old things. One of them was about mediumship. We know that mediums and mediumnic activities and capabilities have existed throughout history. But never before had someone actually tried to define it and actually give a name to it. There was all kinds of different mystic interpretations about our ability to communicate with those spirits that are not incarnated. And Allan Kardec, in his Medium's book, for which we're celebrating 150 years, provides a very clear and simple definition. He says that every individual who senses the influence of spirits to any degree is a medium. This faculty is inherent to humankind. Thus we can state that everyone is a medium to a certain degree. So in these 2 paragraphs, Kardec just destroyed all of the mystic cloud that until then existed around the definition of these phenomena and these abilities that many, many humans over the centuries and years have demonstrated. So I thought, why not look back prior to Kardec's definition? Let's start from early civilization and try to demystify the concept of Spiritism. And the best way that I can think of doing that is showing how common and how frequent we saw them across the ages, across the various regions of the world, regardless of one's origin, ethnic group, religion, level of education, gender, age. So my presentation today is entitled Dismistifying Mediumship, and why not a tale of saints and witches? Because until Kardec, you fell in one of these 2 categories if you were a medium. We're going to hear the story, very brief, because we have a short period today, of 21 individuals. Before we begin looking at them, and I'm going to talk about mediumships and mediums, let's have just a quick introduction of what do we mean by these 2 terms. Left-hand side, out of the medium's book, we identified some of the key types of mediums that have been categorized by Allan Kardec. He defined physical effect mediums, sensitive and impressionable mediums, those who can hear, the hearing mediums, those who can see, those who perform their abilities where they're kind of in a trance state, somnambulistic. Those mediums that can heal. Those who have other kind of phenomenal capabilities, either through psychographic or what's called thematographical mediums. I'm not going to go into details. This is kind of a plug for those who don't know what those types of mediums are, to get a copy of the medium's book, and you'll find each one is very, very well defined inside the book. Now, obviously, as we're going back, and we're going to go really back in time, these terms did not exist. So we have identified some of these people, not through some kind of category of types of mediums they were, but through their abilities, through their capabilities. And the most common ones that we used are the ability for clairvoyance, to see things that are happening in other places, for example. Divinations or premonitions, see the future. Levitation, that's pretty cool. I wish I could levitate. But we're going to see throughout history there are many recorded cases of special mediums who were able to levitate. Magnetic healing. Well, this is very common today. Through our abilities and through our passes, we perform a little bit every time we come to a Spiritist group or Spiritist center for our passes. The bicorporeity or bilocation is some people have been shown to be able to, while incarnated, be in two places at the same time. And finally, the most common one that has attracted so much attention, especially in Brazil and in other parts of the world, psychography. The ability to write things, receive messages and put them on paper, something someone is dictating to you, ideas, stories, facts, or even language that the actual medium had no ability, no chance of having knowledge or prior knowledge of that information. So all of these are the types of abilities that we look for when trying to characterize someone as a medium. Obviously, we want to go back to ages where writing was not yet developed. It was very limited to a very small cast of people. Records were not necessarily precise. So we rely a lot on verbal stories that have come down to us through the ages or through some of the holy books. So are we ready to start? Can we start our time machine and really go back in time? We're going to start with stories from our ancient times. And as I said, our history or records that come from those ages are very sketchy, maybe contradictory. But nevertheless, they do paint a picture of some extraordinary individuals who have changed the direction of humanity through their mediuming capabilities. I'm going to go through 21 stories. I'm sure that most of you are going to be familiar with the majority of them. But I bet you there's going to be one or two that you've never heard about. And these are also, you're going to find, extraordinary people that lived in difficult times and has helped us reach where we are today as a civilization. The first one is going back to 1800 years before Christ. And it's Hammurabi. Hammurabi was the first king of the what's called the Babylonian Empire. There was Babylon before, and we know of Babylon through our writings in the Bible. But he was the first one who really created and was leader of the bigger Babylon Empire. And what's so special about Hammurabi is that he created the first known written set of laws. Right? The Hammurabi Code, or the Code of Hammurabi, was the first record that we have of a legal structure that told people how they had to behave in civilization. That in itself extraordinary, and even though the code itself was very harsh and very punitive, as compared to our laws today. Nevertheless, they did provide a vast vision of what people had to do, from commercial dealings to crimes and punishment. It was still starting the vocation, an eye for an eye and a hand for a hand. So in the code, if you murdered somebody's child, that person had the right to kill your own child as well in retribution as punishment to you. So very tough. But what's unique about this is that Hammurabi, when he goes to these people and gives this, being such a sophisticated set of laws, we have 282 laws that were put together. He describes them as having been given to him by God. It's the first record of a psychographic event where God has come to a person and has given him the directions of the laws. The god was obviously a Babylonian god, and there is some controversy where this was the god Shamash, or another one called Marduk. Most people think it's Marduk. But nevertheless, here is the king saying that I myself have to obey these laws because they don't come from me. They have been given to me by God. Quite extraordinary. And this predates the Mosaic Code, the code that was created by Moses. That, lo and behold, is our next character in the story. I think most people have heard of Moses. They know the story of Moses, of how he was commanded by God to lead his people, to abandon his career as a king or a pharaoh in Egypt, and lead the Jewish people out of Egypt into the promised land. Somewhere along the way, he too receives now instruction from God in terms of the Ten Commandments. So I'm going to be going through these stories, and I'm going to start putting in some of what we have learned from Spiritism into kind of reflecting how these same things were happening back then. One of the things that we know is that the spirits are very stubborn, especially with people who don't listen and don't want to get their lessons. They insist, they repeat, they do it. Well, Moses receives the Ten Commandments after 40 days and 40 nights, comes down, sees that while he was away, the whole house went messy. Right? Everybody's back to adoring the pagan gods, the golden cow. He has a fit. He tells people those who still believe in him, to kill everybody else. And he actually destroys the tablets with the Ten Commandments. Right? He's so infuriated that he basically goes against the very laws that he was bringing down, because he told his followers to kill all of those who were not obeying his rules. Well, God was insistent, makes him go back for another 40 days and 40 nights, and again dictates to him the Ten Commandments. And this time he puts it in the tablets, and he must now take those and rule by those laws. So again, this is a clear example of psychography in terms of being able to receive the words, these messages from the afterlife. And again, I'm not trying to be contradictory to whether the spirits was deemed to be a god or is it the real God, and how the message came to Moses as a human, as an incarnate. The idea around mediumship is that he has been selected to receive this message that is coming from the invisible world. Now, Moses had other mediumnic abilities. This was just kind of the highlight of his life, for which he then moves on, and he actually creates the Mosaic law based on the Ten Commandments. Now, these are laws that was created by him, but still he would push them as the desire of God. He also had the ability of spiritual healing. There are cases, stories in the Bible where he helped heal people, and obviously all the premonitions that was given to him about the place.